Hey everybody, it's Ashley of Day to Day Social Work. I am a tutor and I specialize in assisting people to pass the social work exam on the master's and bachelor's level and also moving into the clinical level. So, welcome to all of the new members. I always like to welcome the new members first because it's been a while since I made a video, especially since I made a Sunday social. And so I just wanted to make sure that I welcome all of the new members to the Facebook group, to the YouTube channel, and to the Instagram page as well. So, welcome, welcome, welcome. I am sorry for the delay. We are in the middle of a pandemic, as you know, and so it's a lot going on. And, just like most people, I'm taking it day by day and trying to stay safe and just trying to make it. So I finally got some motivation to get some videos out. So I'm going to try to release at least one video a week for the next few weeks and give you all some content. So for those of you who don't know and who are new, day-to-day social work is basically about all things social work, primarily assisting you to pass the license exam again on the master's or bachelor's level, moving into the clinical level, and also just anything dealing with social work. So normally when I do a video, it's going to be something related to social work. We do have people who are members of day-to-day social work who are still earning their bachelor's degree. Some people are getting their master's degree who did not have a background in social work. So I think this channel is really helpful, and I try to give content that would cater to those people who may not know. And even some of us who do have master's degrees and licenses and that kind of thing, we can always use tips and refreshers and just new knowledge that we don't know or things that we need to brush up on. So that's what this channel is all about. Again, welcome to the new people, and for the people who have been around for a while, thank you for coming back. So also please share this video, share all of the videos, share the day-to-day social work YouTube channel with your friends and colleagues, and please like the video and subscribe so that we can get this thing rolling again. So I know a lot of people are still studying for their exams. It's been a very slow summer for me as far as people needing assistance with the exam. I think a lot of people are just doing like most people are doing, trying to make it through the days and the weeks. Not a lot of people are testing right now. There are wait lists and for testing center appointments to actually take your exam. So a lot of things have slowed down, but I think that they're going to soon pick up. Hopefully, things don't take a turn for the worst at the end of the year, but I think that things are going to pick up here soon, and that a lot of people will be taking their exams again. So today's video is going to be about, and like I said, I'm going to put out a lot of videos after this, but this particular video is about your language in social work. So we think about language, of course, we think about maybe English or Spanish or Mandarin or some other language, but I mean the language that we use on a regular basis as social workers. So in my experience, and that's what I always talk from on my videos, is just from my experience. I know everybody's experiences are different, but from my experience, language has always been something that I don't really think about prior to becoming a social worker. Language is just something that, it's a part of your cultural norms. It's a part of how you talk, whether you are from a different region, if you have a Southern drawl, if you have a Northern accent, Midwestern, all of that kind of stuff. But I think as we get older and we get more experienced and we get into different settings with different people and come across different clients, we really have to be more aware of our language and how we talk to people. And not just, like I said, English or Spanish or anything like that, but how we actually speak to our clients and how we adhere to the code of ethics and make sure that people feel like their worth, their dignity, and their self-worth is respected when they come across us as social workers. So in past videos, I've talked about what's in a name and how it's important that we call our clients by their names, and how it's important that we make sure that we're pronouncing their names correctly so that we don't offend them. And I know sometimes some people may have what to us may seem, to each individual person, not to us as social workers, but to us individual people, might seem like it's something hard to pronounce. And I get that. But we have to try our best to make sure that we are pronouncing our clients' names correctly, because your name is your first identifier. Like, as soon as you're born, like, it's one of the first things that we're identified by is our names. And so, people's families and parents name them certain things because it means something to the parent at the time. And then also because, as we get older, our names mean something different, or it could mean the same thing as our parents' meaning, but most of the time it means something different for us. So I think it's very important that we call people by their names. And one of the things that made me think about this is I had a client once who had a birth name, but her chosen name was something different. And so I think it's very important that we recognize that, and this person was a member of the LGBTQ community. I think it's important that we recognize and acknowledge and therefore call people what they want to be called. So this person was born with male body parts, but they live their life as a female. And so therefore they chose their name, and their chosen name was a more feminine name if you look at society's idea of what a feminine name is, although we know that some names can be what they call unisex. But so I had to make sure that I call this person by her chosen name as opposed to the name that was assigned to her. So it's things like that that we have to be aware of. And, sometimes things might not line up to what we are used to or how we would do things. And that's the beauty of being a social worker. We become knowledgeable and exposed to different people and different backgrounds and different ways of living and different lives. And so we have to always make sure that we are not judgmental. And, I think that for a lot of people, it's kind of easy. I won't say not to be judgmental, but it's kind of easy not to, because everybody judges something. Like, everybody has a preconceived notion about something at some point. But I think for a lot of people, it's easy to be accepting of what other people want. But then there are some people who are not as tolerable or accepting of something different than their own norm. So I always like to talk about how we have to check our own selves. Remember that it's not about us as social workers. It's not about us. We have to check our own selves, and we have to make sure that we're not being judgmental and that we're open to different people's lives and their experiences. And so I just wanted to say that because it's something that came across my mind when I was thinking about the content for this video. But also, I've mentioned in a previous video, and I keep doing this to my hair because it's this little piece that keeps going into my eyelash. But anyway, so I made a video before, also another Sunday social months back, about the black hose versus the snake. And so I won't get into the whole details of it because, like I said, I've made it in a video before and you've probably seen it and maybe you haven't. So I'll give you a brief overview of what the black hose and the snake analogy is. And so when we talk about language and we talk about how we talk to our clients and how we approach our clients, I was in a training before some years back at a rehab facility back when I was in grad school. And one of the speakers gave an analogy about a black hose and a snake, where you're out in a garden somewhere and you see a black snake. And so you feel frightened maybe, or you feel afraid. So you run back and you try to get away from the snake. But then you go back into the garden at some point and you come across, you're walking, you come up on something in the grass that's black and it resembles a snake. And so your first instinct is to become afraid. But then upon further inspection, you see that it's actually a black hose, like a black water hose. And so, but since you've had that initial interaction with the black snake, and most people don't like snakes, they fear snakes. Some people love them. But since you had that initial encounter with the black snake, which is something that frightens most people, when you come upon the black hose, in your mind, it is the black snake because it looks similar, and that the connotation between a snake being venomous and poisonous and that kind of thing is all negative. So the relation to us as social workers and us in the helping profession was that you don't want to be the snake that the client comes across. So you may have a client who comes for services at an agency. They come across a social worker who does not speak to them with, let them have dignity, and they don't talk to them in a respectful manner. And so they kind of talk to them as if they may be beneath them, or they may just treat them as another client, treat them as a number, that kind of thing. And so that may rub the client the wrong way. And now, because of that one bad encounter, that one bad experience, the client is jaded. They have a bad view of social workers because they may see social workers as people who think that they are above, or people who will talk to you any kind of way. And so when they go and, maybe get over that one encounter because they really need help again at some point in the future, they come across another social worker at maybe the same agency or similar agency. And so their first thought is that this social worker is going to be like the last social worker. But this social worker is actually the black hose, the black water hose, as opposed to the black snake. So just because both people were social workers and in the helping profession doesn't mean that because the first person you had a bad or negative encounter with is going to be like or the second person is not going to be like the first person that you had the initial bad encounter with. So always make sure that you are treating people with dignity and respect and talking to them as human and as people, because you don't want to be seen as the black snake. And you don't want to give that impression to someone who it may be their first time asking for help. You don't want to give them that impression, and then every other person that they go to after you, they feel is going to treat them the same kind of way. So hopefully that made sense. Just tried to sum it up, but I explained it a little bit more in detail in a previous video, like I said. Another thing, and like I said, just to sum that up and wrap that part up, is just make sure that you are the black hose. You may look like the social worker. You may be in that same role as the other social worker was. You may be that helping professional, that person that is going to broker the resources to the client, but you're not the black snake. You're the black water hose. You are good. You are someone who is actually here to help and treat people respectfully and with dignity. So when I started thinking about that, I also wanted to talk about, of course, we want to talk to our clients in general, both men, women, young, old, black, white, Hispanic, Asian, whoever. We want to treat everybody with respect. But I wanted to talk specifically about our male clients, especially if you are a female, if you're a woman and you're a social worker and you have male or masculine presenting clients. I think it's very important that we don't emasculate men. And I guess it could go the same way for women. I don't really know the flip side of that because I haven't thought about it. But I guess it would be, if you are a male social worker, you don't want to kind of strip that independence from a female client. I guess that would be the opposite of what I'm about to talk about. But just from my perspective as a woman who has had male clients, I'm going to talk about it from my experience as a woman. So I've seen instances where some of my coworkers have emasculated male clients, and they were female social workers, and we've had male clients who were in need of some assistance, and I saw a colleague literally tear this man down to the point where he was about to be in tears in front of a group of female social workers. And I just felt so bad for him because my perspective of the situation was a little bit different. And I didn't think that what was being said or what was going on in that moment was necessary. And it really dug at me because it seemed like he lost his dignity in that moment. And that's what our code of ethics is about. It's about empowering our clients, and it's about making sure that we treat them with dignity and respect. And I've probably said dignity and respect 20 times in this video already, and it's only been 16 minutes. But that's what it's about. And when I come across male clients, I always make sure to make them especially feel like they have their dignity, and like I don't ever want to emasculate them. So you kind of have to know how to navigate when you have male clients and you're a female social worker. I think men, and I don't ever want to generalize men or anything like that. And I'm not saying that a man would automatically feel emasculated by a woman social worker. But these are things that, as I'm growing in my career as a social worker, and I'm coming across more clients and different people, and especially with us being in the pandemic, seeing a lot more of a need for male clients to have assistance with resources and things like that. And what I've found is, in my own experience, everybody's different, is that sometimes some men are prideful and they need the help because you'll know the backstory of why they were sent to you, if they were sent to you, because sometimes people don't come voluntarily, or maybe they were referred to you. But you'll have the backstory, and you know that this person needs some assistance. And when you talk to them, they decline, or they may be reluctant, or they may be hesitant. And so you kind of have to know how to frame things, or go through the back door, as they say, instead of being, very direct. And you just have to know, you have to use your discretion and your discernment of when you have to frame things in a different way. So you could say things like, for instance, I had a male, this is just a made up story, but let's say that I have a male client who maybe lost his job and he needs assistance with food, and he needs to apply for SNAP, which is food stamps. And this is someone who has worked all his life, and he's never had to ask for any assistance before for himself. And so he's a little embarrassed. And so let's say that this client went to maybe the Department of Social Services because he's a single dad, and the caseworker there told him to come to you to help him with applying for food stamps. So the caseworker has given you the background, and you know that he's lost his job. He's barely making ends meet. He's had to go to the food pantry before to kind of supplement the stuff that he had, but now things are kind of running out. And so you know that he has a need. So he gets to you, and you're like, "Oh, Mr. Such and Such, I see that you were referred to me because you need assistance with applying for SNAP." And he's like, "Well, I don't really like taking handouts, and I've worked all my life, and I don't know how this has happened. If it weren't for the pandemic, then I would still be working. And, I've worked all my life. I've paid my taxes. And, he's kind of giving you the story about making sure that that he's a hard worker, that, he's paid into the system. He's never had to ask for anything. He's basically letting you know that he has fulfilled his role as a man all his life. And so he's just kind of prideful and kind of reluctant to admit that he needs the assistance. So you listen to him and you're like, oh no, I completely get it. Everybody is having a hard time right now. Yes, we're in the middle of a pandemic. A lot of people have lost their jobs, and I've understood, and I've seen a lot of people come through here who have a similar story to yours. They've worked all their lives. They paid into the system. They've never seen themselves, having to be in this situation. So I completely get it. So it's not just you, this is something that's normal that a lot of people are having to experience. So, you come across as a very hardworking man. I mean, you're a single father. You're taking care of your responsibilities. You've always worked before. So, all of us come across a hard time sometimes. So you kind of have to talk them down and kind of normalize. And it's not even that you're lying. You're actually telling the truth. A lot of people are going through the situation, but in order to, I don't want to say stroke the ego, but it's kind of like stroking the ego. But, when you come across a client like that, you want to and that's part of building a rapport. You want to make sure that they understand that you understand that they are a hard worker, and that they're not looking for a handout, and that this isn't a handout. This is assistance to help them through a tough time. And so those are the kind of things that you kind of have to do, in my experience, when handling, and some women too are like that too. So I'm not just putting it all on men, but I'm just saying I wanted to talk specifically about your language when talking to a man in particular, but it could apply to anybody, of course. Another example would be, let's see, I had it in my mind, the food stamps. I had it in my mind. I can't remember what it was. If I think of it, then I'll tell you. But so that's very important, to make sure that you make people feel comfortable. But some men or women, but we're speaking specifically about men. Some men, you might come across them and they're completely fine with it. They see that, hey, I know that this is just a hard time for me. I'm glad that the assistance is there. So yeah, sign me up. I'm not planning on being on assistance forever, that kind of thing. So, and it's the same, that's what I was going to say about counseling. So you might have a male client who obviously has some things that he's going through. Maybe he's seen his doctor and he's been diagnosed with depression or anxiety or something similar. And you talk to him, you do an assessment with him, and you kind of hear some things that he says that leads you to believe that, yes, he definitely could use some therapy. He's even venting to you because he feels comfortable with you. And so he's giving you information, and you ask him, has he ever thought about going to therapy? And he says, oh, I don't know. I don't know that would be helpful for me. And then he continues to tell you about the struggles that he's had, the things he's had to suffer through. And you're listening. You're doing active listening. These are skills that we learn as social workers. So you're actively listening. And, again, he's telling you more and more stuff that's kind of like, yeah, you could really use a therapist. And so you bring it up again, and he's like, well, I just don't know what a therapist could do for me. So you kind of have to frame it again and say, well, honestly, it's just like what we're doing right now. Like, you just came to me today for an assessment. You don't know me from the next person. I don't know you. I'm a neutral party. But I mean, you're telling me this, and this, and you seem comfortable with me. And, just based off the conversation, I really think that you could use some therapy. It will be exactly like this. You'll be talking to a person about the things that are going on, and they can kind of help you navigate through some of your challenges, give you some coping mechanisms, coping skills rather, and help you just kind of sort through everything. And, so you point this out to him and you let him see how comfortable he feels with you. It's just a conversation, and it's not that you're crazy. It's not that something is wrong with you. It's just talking to a neutral party about things that you're going through to kind of help you cope and get through and learn some skills to be able to manage your condition, basically. And so, still some people, and you can't push it on people. You kind of have to just say, I'll give you some time to think about it. Maybe I can call you next week and see where you are. Give them some education, as we call it. You give them some pamphlets or websites that they can go and kind of check out and see. And you also kind of want to let them know that it can take a while to find a therapist that you kind of click with and that you mesh with. So sometimes you might see a therapist and going just one time, it isn't something that you might feel comfortable with. But if you go a second or third time, you might start seeing that, hey, this isn't so bad. Or you might see from that first time that this person, the therapist as a person, is just not for you. And so you might want to go and try somebody else. And then there's always the issue of insurance and payment and that kind of thing. So you always want to have resources available that if the patient or the client does not have insurance or any means of payment, any method of payment or ways to pay, that you give them something that is a free resource or a resource that has a sliding scale. And then also just explain to them that this is not a long-term thing. It can be if you want it to be, but you could go a few sessions and see how it works out. And if you kind of don't like it, then you don't have to go back, or you could try someone new, or you could do a set number of sessions and see where things are and then continue on, or just not go anymore. So you give people choices and options. So language is very important. I think it's one of the most important things. Your energy is transferable. So if a person sees that your energy is off, that your language, when you talk to them, is off, and sometimes we may not know it. And so if you don't know, that's why it's good to have clinical supervision. It's good to have one-on-ones with your supervisor, with your colleagues, and kind of see how they see things that you do, and they can give you good feedback. So sometimes we're people just like everybody else. So sometimes our energy might be positive to us, but it could be our demeanor that comes across as something that's not positive to other people. And so these are the kind of things that you kind of have to think about. But always make sure that your language is on point. And then another thing about language is sometimes some people are too professional, if that makes sense. Some people are too by the book. And sometimes you have to meet people where they are, and you have to be able to code switch and use the language that your client would use. You don't want to use jargon and vocabulary and different words that are above what the client understands. And you also don't want to water down things or vocabulary as well for people who may understand. So you don't want to assume that because of the way that someone looks, that they may not understand what you're saying or the words that you're using. And so you always want to ask people if they're familiar with certain things. So if I'm talking to a client about, I don't know, a lot of times I have to make stuff up off the top of my head. But if I'm talking to a client about a certain thing, I may ask them if they are familiar with it before I just assume that they're not. And then that might rub them the wrong way, because they may look at me and say, oh, well, she didn't even think that I knew what such and such was. So you always want to make sure that you check in with your client and ask them if they understand something before you go into a whole lot of detail about stuff, because they might look at you like you're judging them when they are already privy to what you're talking about. So I don't want to blabble on, but that's just a little snippet. And so I'm trying to keep these at about 30 minutes. So please remember to like and subscribe, and I will see you in the next video. Take care.